We're pretty much at the limit of borrowing at the moment.
You are supposed to be the servants of the people. The people are supposed to be your bosses. And to me, the people doesn't even realize that.
Good evening. My name is Ralph from St Vincent and the Grenadines.
I'm going to say something that's controversial. CARICOM has gotten in its own way.
I want to be very clear that there is a dangerous tendency in our country.
This program is talk about the facts. We must bring the facts.
Time to face the facts.
Good evening and welcome to this edition of Time to Face the Facts. Wherever in the world you are watching this program, we're very happy that you chose to join us. As usual, we have very interesting and in-depth conversations on this program. And you know something? Time to Face the Facts this evening brings you Echo Chat, where we had a discussion with some folks from St Vincent and the Grenadines on some matters that are happening in that country. We begin with Attorney at Law Kay Bacchus-Baptiste, who takes us through a journey with her client, Cornelius John, who had a most harrowing experience at his home. And Mrs. Bacchus-Baptiste is representing him in that matter. Now, Mr. Cornelius John, he was attacked by 3 persons at his home, 2 of which had firearms, 1 of which actually shot him in the leg. He was taken to the hospital by a contingent of police. And Mrs. Bacchus-Baptiste tells his story after he was released from the hospital.
He was discharged from the hospital, and to date, no arrests have been made, and the police have not contacted him in any way to show that they're taking his case seriously. And so, as a result, he sought my advice and has retained me so that I can advise him and represent him going forward. He said that the police had asked him to come in today. And this is after it broke on the news and was on the radio stations, and persons have been talking about it in the media, on Facebook, etc. Then he said the police asked him to come in today to give a caution statement. Now, a caution statement implies that they are investigating him as a perpetrator, and so they need a caution statement from him in that whatever he's saying may be taken down and then be given it evidence against him and that he may be charged. So I was quite alarmed at that, because bearing the facts in mind, he is the victim. And I thought that other persons, the perpetrator, should be the one that the police would be seeking to get a caution statement from. For his wife had made some report against him. And as far as he knows, he has not done anything to his wife. He hasn't harmed her, he hasn't or anything. And so he's somewhat perplexed as to why he should have to give a caution statement. Well, as it turned out, I intended to go in with him to the police station today, but we had a flash flood, and it was very difficult for him to get out from where he was. The area where we had to go to the court was flooded. And so I called the station and informed them that we would not be able to come in today, so they can reschedule the appointment. I'm not sure yet when it would be, but I can tell you a background to what has happened. He said that his wife was out a couple of days with the senator, that is Ashley Morgan, a newly appointed senator, and mind you, deputy speaker of the House, and a lawyer. And he had asked her to come home early this particular day because he had some work to do, replanting corn, and also in his business, and he needed the help, and she was supposed to come home. He said that he called her several times and she did not answer. Eventually, after his insistence, he got her on the phone and she said she was coming. He waited for her so that he could carry out his planting. She did not turn up. He called her again. She said she was coming. She's on her way down. She did not come. He waited again, and eventually she came in late with some excuse, whereupon he was by this time very angry, and he said to her, How could you be disrespecting your marriage like this? You're going around with this senator. You hardly know her. We've been married for 26 odd years, and you know that the Soufriere is on, and I need you, your support, etc. He was upset. And however, he said that that ended. And she went her way because they don't live in the same house. They have been somewhat estranged, but they are still married, and they have interaction. So she lives not too far from him. She went to her house, he went to his, and he said he was inside. And then something told him to come outside. And as he came outside, he saw 3 persons coming into his yard, dressed with a mask. Well, as you know, it's COVID time. And he recognized, of course, right away, the senator. And they passed him. They didn't see him at the front door. They passed him and went to the back of his yard. So he shouted out, "What are you doing? Why are you here?" And they turned around and came back to him. And the lawyer, the gentleman who was in the tallest of the lot, accosted him. "So you want to shoot the senator? You want to kill the senator?" And he said, what are you speaking about? I have not threatened the senator or anything. And he said, all I know, I told my wife she should not be running around with the senator so much when she knows we have things to do. She's disrespecting me. And you're trying to break up my marriage. Well, he didn't get very far after that. He said this person ran off and ran off so that they could get leverage, ran into him, kicked him off the crate he was sitting on, or stone, something like that he was sitting on in his porch, knocked him on the ground, proceeded to punch him, kick him, all sorts of things until he defecated upon himself. Whereas the other person was standing behind him, like standing guard. And after the exchange and the fighting and the tussling, he said the lawyer took his gun out, cranked it, pulled his leg while he's on the ground, discharged the firearm into his leg. Whereupon the senator, Ashel, takes her gun, pushes it in his face and says, "If you call mine, I effing shoot you," and the bad words and so forth. He's on the ground, "Kill me, kill me, kill me," etc. And after that, they left. They left him there bleeding, and there's no one around. He started crying out, and thankfully neighbors came, took him up, and a car, which turned out to be a police car, which is a mystery in itself. That is another mystery, because the car came, took him to the police station, and then from there to the hospital where he was hospitalized. That was on the 13th. This happened about 6:30, 7 o'clock. It was dark by the time, the night, and he was hospitalized. He came out of hospital, and to this date, there has been no arrest, no even detention of the persons, no charges laid, total numbness, as if it did not happen. I intend to call upon the police to take the necessary steps to arrest, bring in the perpetrators. Who police know who they are based on information that I got today. Bring them in at least so that they can the process can begin. We have had this 2 different laws existed in St. Vincent, one for the NDP or supporters or non-ULP supporters, it seems. But when you are a ULP supporter, you seem to be able to do anything and get away with impunity. So that's where we are at the moment.
But Mrs. Bacchus-Baptiste, you said the police have been silent as if nothing has happened. And this story sounds so fantastic. It sounds like it really didn't happen.
Well, that's the point. It sounds like the Wild Wild West. And what is terrifying, is that there is no real explanation as to why 2, 3 reasonably thinking human beings would do something like that. It just seems to be a total abuse of power and an understanding and get away with it. It's really perplexing.
I don't know if any one of you have any questions for Mrs. Baptiste or any comments you want to make.
Yeah, I had a question. I was wondering if in St. Vincent, if somebody comes into the hospital with a gunshot wound, is the provider at the hospital required to report it?
You are very good question. Yes, they are. They are required to report it. That I know that the police, they are very well aware of what happened and what they ought to do. It's not that you're thinking, oh, they don't know. They know what has transpired. They know who is involved. And maybe that's why they have chosen to remain inactive.
Anything you want to say to Mrs. Bacchus Baptiste Dwyer?
Well, I'm still at a loss to even wrap my head around this. Now, there are a number of questions I'm sure the council will want to ask when she gets in the right forum. But a question I would like to ask is, among all of the other things that she has said that caused me great concern, do these two individuals have licensed firearms?
Well, you do, because of who they are. And there are three in all, but two had firearms according to my instructions. The two who had firearms are lawyers. So it's perplexing that it would act so irresponsible and for such scant reason, because I cannot understand. They were not defending anything on the spur of the moment. It seems quite premeditated and contemplated to me.
Well, you go on somebody's property. If you go on somebody's property with a firearm, uninvited, I mean, it just exacerbates the situation for the two persons. Let us use the term allegedly. It exacerbates the situation for them. And it's very worrying that the police now want a caution statement from this man and have no energy to interrogate the two other persons. The rule of law, if what you say is correct, and I'm not doubting you, madam, but if what you say is correct, then the rule of law in St. Vincent is in serious trouble. That's supposed to be the backbone of any stable society and democracy. So it worries me that there might be contagion. Not that these other islands are angelic in comparison with what you're describing, because crap happens in all of them.
Of course.
And I think this is indicative of a broader problem that we have in the region. But some of the things you've said about the relationship between the gentleman, your client, and his wife, I wouldn't even bother considering those, because if they get along, it seems, but not so much as man and wife, the relationship seems to me to be a little bit eccentric, to tell you the truth. But none of that can justify people going on his property armed and shooting him, if that is what happened. And if these people, if what you say is correct, and again, total respect, I'm not questioning the veracity of it, I'm going along with you, presuming it to be correct, then if justice is not done in this case, what you're going to have sooner or later is an explosion of street justice, and that will destabilize St. Vincent and the Grenadines to the very core, because big people will be hurt.
I can tell you, if you make that statement in St. Vincent, in a matter like this, you may well be charged with causing fear and alarm. Just make that statement.
Well, let me just tell you right now, you are hereby instructed if that happens, because I would gladly say it on the most busy thoroughfare in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. If justice is not done for the little man, and this is why you see people who are pressed like this sometimes take the law into their own hands. They are totally in despair and frustrated. What can they do? I have nothing to lose. Well, you will have something to lose too. This is just life.
I mean, when the scene rolls out in your mind and you think of the people who are involved, who are supposed to be lawmakers, and you look at it just in the context in which Mrs. Bacchus Baptiste outlined it, there was no provocation. You know, you enter someone's premises, trespass on someone's
A criminal
premises.
trespass, yes, followed
Yeah.
by assault, causing
Uh-huh.
actual bodily harm, and probably attempted murder. 3
Right.
persons consort. I mean, it's inexcusable.
Yes, and what did the gentleman do? I understand he's someone who is middle-aged. What did he do prior to
None of
them?
the things that could have done to justify them leaving where they were and coming there armed with a weapon, uninvited.
Exactly so.
But,
You know,
but it is just mind-boggling that this has been happening. But you see, St. Vincent has been slowly creeping down a path of lawlessness and actual division, where if you support outwardly the ruling government, you could do no wrong. I'll tell you, we have a commissioner of police who is clearly supporting the government. We don't have independent offices in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. All of our key offices are appointments made by the government, but of people who are more or less like lackeys or do what the government or what they think the government would want them to do. We have a commissioner of police who would attend in the recent election ULP functions, that's the government campaign functions, dressed in the color of the party. Everybody in St. Vincent know this.
What about the members of the Police Service Commission? Isn't this something that should come to their attention, or are they too lackeys?
Well, you see, there is a police
Complaints tribunal?
Yeah, which the very president who tried to speak out against some of these atrocities was charged and hauled before the police itself, you see? And some of the police, the top police, they go to the campaign, these election campaign meetings, also dressed in red. And it has reached a stage where Vincentians, like, they're now numb to this and do not expect impartiality from these officers. So it's a very, very serious situation. I'll give you an example of how it is one law for one person's and another for others. At the end of the 2010 or 2015 elections, there was a protest by the NDP, that is the opposition party, and many persons attended. Ben Exeter attended, and he had a licensed firearm in an upholstery, in its upholster in his waist. It was, I think he was accosted by someone in the crowd, and his shirt revealed the firearm. Ben was beaten, attacked by the police, arrested, charged, and the firearm license was taken away to this day. I defended him, took the matter to court, won the case, of course, but his firearm was never returned to him, as far as I know. Now, compare that with a sitting member of parliament. Now, Ben, of course, was a member of he had ran in the opposition, for the opposition, and there was a petition before the court, of which there were 2 petitions, and he was one of the petitioners. So, of course, there was no love for the government because he was bringing a petition to the court, in the court, which could bring the government down. And that is the treatment that was meted out to him with his licensed firearm, which he did not brandish at anybody. It was just exposed. And here you have a senator sitting in parliament, taking her firearm, coming with others, in concert, shooting at the victim. He goes to hospital. She threatens him with her firearm, and not a single arrest has been made. And most likely she still has that firearm, I assume. How do you reconcile these drastically opposed situations? Situations with drastically opposed solutions. It is not a very nice time to be living in St. Vincent at all.
What about the Bar Association? the legal community. What are they doing? That's funny.
That alone will take an episode to speak about.
Mm-hmm.
From the time I was president of the bar before the current president of the bar. And after my term was up, we had elections for the other president of the bar. And there was a concerted effort. St. Vincent is like no other place to ensure that someone who supports the opposition will not become president of the bar again. And persons paid for government employed lawyers to come to the meeting. When I say persons, some prominent ULP persons. And there was a campaign as though it was an election, a national election campaign. They selected someone who supports the government to become the president of the bar. Persons got disillusioned, turned off, did not go to the meeting. And the current president was elected with, I think, just barely a quorum, 9-10 persons. That's to tell you how bad it was. To date, she has been the president for probably the past 7 or 8 years, because it should have been 2 years only. But the Bar Association is so divided now. It has become just like a political playboy. And all the other lawyers have decided that they are not interested anymore. So the Bar Association idea is just a farce. Most of the officers are supporting the government. They will never, and we have had occasion to call on them. So I'm not just saying this lightly. You will never get a condemnation from them. They would be silent. There are other times when you expect them to speak out on similar glaring issues. And so the Bar Association is non-existent in St. Vincent.
Well, that's a shame. And again, you're not unique. You're not unique in that, but that's a shame. Not even a smattering of the members of the legal community have the guts to speak out and said, now, we're not accusing, we're not condemning, we're not judging, anything like that. But let us do this thing transparently. An incident has taken place, there are allegations. Make sure the judicial system works and works transparently. I'm telling you, Counsel, the history of the world will show you that when you push people into a corner, sooner or later, they are going to pounce on you, and you're going to have a serious instability in the country. You cannot deny people the chance for justice. You cannot continue to impose yourself on people like that. And the members of the legal community and other so-called intelligentsia and educated people, they have to understand they have a special responsibility to the rule of law, to justice, to the Constitution, and to people's human rights. And if people do not feel protected by them, I am telling you, somebody's going to do something rash.
I quite understand.
This is bad. This is very bad.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And the Prime Minister is a lawyer.
Yes.
We know that.
Yes, yes. You see, I can tell you that my client intends to bring his civil action for compensation.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
Apart, there's to be criminal charges laid, and we have a law, which I'm sure all of you have, that private criminal complaints can be brought where the police show their responsibility and do not prosecute state.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this now. What about your DPP? When it reaches the DPP, what's going to happen? I'm giving you a lot of jokes tonight.
You're really giving me jokes.
Yeah, I'm glad you smile. You have a nice smile.
You will understand why that's such a big joke. You will soon understand even why. But I was saying that the government passed a law making it mandatory for the DPP to give a fiat before you can bring a private criminal action. This was done because during an election, just after an election, myself and another lawyer brought criminal charges against, private criminal charges against persons who were breaching the electoral laws and who ran for the government.
Yes.
order to stop that, so that they believe that they can breach with impunity and only the government can bring charges, they amended the law so that the charges, private criminal charges, can no longer be brought.
Does that not offend the Constitution, though?
Well, you see, the Constitution itself gives the DPP generally the mandate to control and bring all criminal charges. So this was a exception, that something that was from ancient, from time immemorial, that gave this to the right to the private citizen. But like any other document, it can only be so good as the person who sits in the seat carries out their responsibility properly. That's the most you can do. The laws are there. I think all the laws are there and are adequate, most of them, but they are only so good as the person who carry out their jobs, whether they do it in the proper way or not. And that is the problem we face in St. Vincent.
Well, if it reaches the DPP and let us say he decides to nolly-prost the matter, would you proceed further, or you don't want to get ahead of yourself?
Well, no, not yet. That has happened before. I was involved in the persons who brought the rape charges against the Prime Minister, same Rav Gonsalves. And that's exactly what happened. We brought charges of rape against him. We brought charges of indecent assault. And in all of them, the DPP just nolly-prost the matters.
You didn't apply for judicial review?
We did. And the court held that he was reasonable in nolly-prosting them. And we appealed. And when we appealed, our client was somehow gotten to and decided to drop us. And told that some compromises were made, and that was the end of the matter.
Mrs. Bacchus-Baptiste said about 3 times this evening, the affiliation with the party which forms the government seems to give people the right in St. Vincent to do anything. And it's a very, very chilling statement when you look at it in light of the shooting incident. Welcome, Cyrus. Welcome, Adriana. When you look at it in light of this shooting incident, Mrs. Bacchus-Baptiste, it is a very, very, very chilling statement. Because in my mind, if these people did not know that they could get away with an act like that, they could not have carried it out with such impunity. To walk on a man's property and just shoot him like that without the confidence, you know, that you can walk away and nothing is going to come of it. They wouldn't have done it.
It's quite chilling because some of the evidence that is still unfolding suggests that the police knew right away what happened, and almost suggests that the police were monitoring the occasion. It is very, very chilling. Almost suggests that. What I'm saying. We know for sure that the police was on the spot, like within minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, without anyone.
How far away is the police station? 10 minutes drive?
Yeah, something like that. But they were on the spot, which begs a lot of questions. If the police was on the spot immediately thereafter, to the extent that they found the shell, took a picture of it, escorted the man into their car, took him to the hospital eventually. Why hasn't there been any arrests or even detention or any issue whatsoever? 3 policemen were on the scene immediately thereafter, according to our instructions. We know the names, and as I said, appropriate action will be taken in due course.
Oh, well, Malika, Cyrus, I don't know. I understand that your time with us is limited, Mrs. Bacchus-Baptiste. So if any of the other suspects have any question or any comment or anything for Mrs. Bacchus-Baptiste before she has to leave us, please go ahead and put it in.
Yes, I have a quick statement and then a question. My statement is this. None of us are new to the type of polarization and, tribal attitudes that exist and confront us in our territories. We know that the law is not treated as sacrosanct and different. It has also become susceptible. It's a very porous vessel, right? And it is often infiltrated by the political dictates. I get that. And so there are always these undertones of people flouting the rule of law and other fundamental principles that Dwyer would have raised. We see it every day. But I have to say that categorically, an assault, such violence, right, of this level, I have not seen or heard of before. And that the perpetrators of that type of violence can just get away with it with impunity, at least up until this point. Now in Antigua, we recently had a situation where one of our ministers were accused of rape. And it is not the first time we have had government officials being accused of a criminal act. So we know that they may be treated specially. So they may not be handcuffed and brought in like the regular Joe on the road. They may be called discreetly and asked to report. They may not spend the night in the jail cell. But we know that eventually there's something that happens to appease the public. The fact that none of that has taken place in this case is absolutely chilling. It is chilling. That is my statement. My question, therefore, is what is the mood in St. Vincent at this time? Many of us have seen a little video clip of your client, who seems like, a very simple man. When I say simple, I mean he does not appear to be a part of, any type of conspiracy to deliberately cause mischief. And just from seeing him, there's a certain level of empathy, sympathy, concern that I myself have for his welfare. So I wanted to know, is this being viewed strictly through political lenses in St. Vincent at the moment? It has become just a political football, and so there are really no issues of right and wrong and ethics being discussed. What's the mood?
That's a difficult question. I will give you a little example as to why I say that. There's another senator in the House who was appointed by opposition, who is appointed by the opposition, a gentleman, not even a woman, a man. And when this thing broke, a very supporting member of the government, the ULP, circulated a voice note naming this senator and saying it is him. No evidence at all, contrary to the evidence, because this is a man and not a woman. And that went around. I say this to show you that the political malice is so bad that persons excuse the most heinous of actions in St. Vincent once you support the political party. I know that other countries have these problems, but I do not believe there's another country on earth where persons bury their consciences, like in St. Vincent, little St. Vincent, just based on politics. There's so many examples I could give of this. Nevertheless, there are a number of Vincentians, right-thinking Vincentians, who are incensed. And I believe that this news hit the airwaves now for about maybe 2 or 3 days because it was covered up before that. I think people are now waking up to this, and many persons are stunned that this can happen in St. Vincent and no arrest has been made. This man could have been dead, because he was bleeding so profusely. He's 62 years old. He could have bled to death. Right now, he's walking around with crutches. It's a very, very serious matter. And I can tell you that there are some witnesses who witnessed very, almost the whole thing, who are trembling with fear to speak out. Trembling with fear. That is why up to now, you haven't heard the names and how high up this gentleman who actually did the shooting is. It's a serious issue, but it will come to light. It will come to light.
Council, good evening again. Let me ask you, in any other shooting, whether with a licensed firearm or unlicensed firearm, the police supposed to retrieve that firearm as evidence?
Well, more than that, yes, and taking the victim, taking the perpetrator, the alleged person, and question them and take a caution statement, etc. All the things you do. There was no investigation at all of the crime scene, as far as I'm told. Just the police who came on the scene immediately after the incident. That in itself has a big question mark over it, and nothing else has been done, right? Even no interview of any of the witnesses or witness who was present at the time. Nothing at all to investigate this crime.
Is that a common procedure in St. Vincent?
No, I cannot say it is a common procedure. It is reserved only for those highly, I should say, persons who are somehow considered protected.
So no shells were recovered from the scene?
I am told that a shell was recovered, a picture taken of it. I believe that shell might well disappear. Those pictures may never see the light of day. We don't know.
Is it something you might want to ask the court's intervention, so maybe you could get at least a picture of it?
All of that.
A picture of what they would have taken, yes.
Yes, all of that.
And the weapon really has to be examined, and there has to be some disclosure as to if that is the weapon was discharged, was discharged, and so forth. I mean, so you have your work cut out for you.
Definitely.
But I see success for you. I see success in this case, and I see a handsome award for this gentleman.
Yes.
But of course, that will not compensate for the egregiousness and the downright cruelty. But it will help put a little plaster on the wound, you know.
It will. If that can be at least can happen.
The thing is, you know, if this is the season for that, because you will have noticed that in the United States, in spite of the George Floyd furor that has been created and the indignation and all appropriate, the police are still killing people.
That's right.
The police are still killing people. The thing is, let's hope that this is not the beginning of a season like that, whereby the utter contempt and heavy-handedness and politicization of life, we don't want that season, because this is now taking it to the next level.
It really is. It's frightening for many Vincentians, because I think this particular case is like a first for something so glaring, so egregious, so unlawful, so uncalled for to happen, and there are no consequences at all so far.
And if the story needs to be presented on an international platform, you know, and the appropriate international justice institutions need to be fully aware of this, eh?
Absolutely.
Agreed. Yes, it has to go there, because I just completely feel like ice water running down my back listening to this story.
Yeah, this is nonsense.
Yes, something which happened on the 13th of April while L Soufriere was blowing, and almost nothing, no action. And that is why it led me to say that these folks who carried out the act must have been so confident that they can just go and shoot the man and walk away, that they did it.
Yep.
You know,
well, Beverly, the L Soufriere and all of the other things may well be distractions that these people do whatever they have to do under. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. and certainly not convicting. But when other major events are happening, it opens the door for you to do these things almost under the radar. So the very shooting of a man might find itself as a minuscule matter in the general scheme of things when the volcano is blowing and people are struggling for survival. So this could, there could be a wickedness to this that we haven't even fathomed yet.
And you know it's gonna be a minor thing because of who is the victim, you know?
Yes.
Exactly.
An ordinary man.
That is so
like
sad.
Jesus.
I'm just listening and I'm scared.
Yes.
This is crazy.
No, I mean, you know, I'm just listening and it just scares me because I think, you know, like Malika said, I mean, and Dwyer and everybody else, I mean, justice is to be the hope that everybody should have. And that hope is gone.
Yes.
Doesn't exist. So what else is there?
When as an ordinary citizen, you do not feel like you have any protection in law or under the law, where do you go and what do you do? How does that gentleman sleep at night? I am sure he must be having nightmares that someone is gonna come and kick in his door and finish the job.
He said
and
so.
He doesn't live very far from him. He is terrified.
He has to be.
He is terrified that if you can do that and get away, you can do it again. It's a real fear on his part, and he has said that publicly.
Yes, he has. Yes, he has. Miss Bacchus, Baptist, what about the journalistic community in St. Vincent?
Well, they, most of them, yes, they have been interviewing him, and one or two have actually printed his story in full. As I said, if it was not for them, the talk show, morning talk shows and the journalists, this would have been forever buried. So we have to give credit to the journalists who have been quite incensed and have been publishing the story.
But no one has been able to get any comment out of the other side based on the reports that I've read so far.
Nothing.
They're not responding, they're not saying anything.
Is the Minister of Security and the Prime Minister, according to him, a very square inch of St. Vincent. Not a word so far. Nothing from the Commissioner of Police. Nothing from the Human Rights Association. Nothing from the Bar Association. Nothing even from other lawyers yet.
Yeah.
It's a situation crying out for justice.
Yeah.
Yes.
And for attention from the international community.
From the international, and you know, that point you made is very, very vital. I believe that is the only thing that might save this man and bring him some justice.
Is it a case of some sort of creeping dictatorship?
Creeping till now?
Well, it seems that way. Surely does.
It can't be creeping till now, Miss Baptiste.
No.
Man, this thing don't grow up and ready, man. It's a gigantic dictatorship.
Basically, St. Vincent is now being run North Korea, St. Vincent style.
It's not something I want to smile at all. That's not a
No,
nice
it's
thing.
not. No, it's not funny.
The mood of Vincentians is very, very oppressive. Every day I speak to Vincentians who tell me they want to leave. They can't take pressure anymore. This is real, you know. This is real.
But the problem is not St. Vincent. The problem is how it is being run.
Yes.
So you don't leave the island.
Well,
okay, you discharge the bad elements. You can't blame the island. Yes, brother.
Is I to get it that I have it as North Korea. The ruling party and its supporters do and get the lion's share of everything.
In St. Vincent, yeah, it's also. But Alexander, we are not significantly different. This is just a matter of degree. So let's not think St. Vincent and the Grenadines is unique. That's why I tell you, the problem is not the island. The problem is the leadership and the people's torpor. We are in a torpor. We need to shake the tree down and get rid of this kind of nonsense. Nobody's going to do it for us. The man is going around St. Vincent, going to the shelters, eating off all the food. When he should be nourishing and supporting and uplifting the people.
Calling himself.
Curse you.
Curse me? I could handle myself, you know.
Well, you know, I always concerned for the young lady. There's a young lady that be on, well, the show, the host of the show. I'm often very concerned for her well-being. Yeah?
Well, I have
then
said
just
that,
keep me in your praise.
She is a very brave young lady, because it is not to be a civil servant and to be speaking out like that. She is 1 in a million, or maybe 2 or 3 in a million, because I can name 1 or 2 others who do it, but most of them.
They're females? They're females?
No, not all.
But most of them?
Well, I said 1 or 3, so yes, 1 another female, yes. But I always tell Adriana that I commend her because she speaks out in a fearless way, but she speaks truth, and that's the important thing.
Mrs. Bacchus-Batiste, I'm just looking if there are any questions and comments on the Facebook feed for you. We usually have a very active and interactive group there. I see Da Vinci Chate say it's not common in SVG, but it's normal if you're ULP. And generally they'll react to things you say or comment on things you say, and sometimes we're not sure exactly what they're commenting on or what they're responding to. But I see Rosalind Gooding, she said, Gooding, years ago, a lawyer killed his girlfriend in front of the Central Police Station and nothing was done about it. Lawless country.
Absolutely untrue. No, that's not true. The person was charged and went to jail, actually.
Okay.
So that's not true. That she got that wrong.
Yeah, very glad you're here to clear that up.
Yeah.
Law only works for ULP members and their supporters. But the law, so is this thing that the officers of the court also use political judgment when they are presiding over and ruling on cases?
You want to get Miss Baptiste in trouble?
Let me take
Yeah. Lucy says, so in the meantime, what is the disposition of the alleged attackers? Are they going about business as usual with their lives?
Oh, yes.
Because according to the gentleman who was shot, they were busy visiting shelters and offering assistance in that area. So do they continue doing that? Is it true, Mrs. Batiste, that the alleged gunman works in the DPP office? And we're not going to press Mrs. Batiste for an answer on that, but I'm just reading the question as I see it. And Michael Alexander says it's happening right here in Grenada. Michael, you better share some of those experiences and some of those things happening with us. Lucy. There's a comment here from Lucy. If it is the shooting in front of the police headquarters on Juve morning, due process prevailed.
Yes.
So she's supporting you on that.
There's a comment here from Lucette King, and she says, Kay, please tell them about going to court all you want, but have to come back to Papa. And then Ezra Winston says, we need a Caribbean spring like in the Arab countries. Well, Doug King Howard says nothing's going to happen to none of the criminals.
Well, Mrs. Bacchus-Batiste, you are involved in this matter. And we are all going to be watching to see what happens. And really and truly, if there is no arrest and charge, and if this thing does not see due process, then we are in a worse situation, not just in St. Vincent, but in the entire Caribbean. Well, what I always talk about, when these things happen in whichever country, because as Dwyer pointed out, we not no angels and no saints in the other countries. I saw a similar thing in Dominica quite recently, when police officers just shot a man, in the middle of a crowd, in the middle of a day, some protest with the bus drivers, and there is some altercation with one of the bus drivers, and the policeman just fires his weapon, and I haven't heard anything come out of that as yet, but I know some lawyers have taken up the case. And one thing I can say about Dominica, which is totally different from St. Vincent, is that you have a group of lawyers in Dominica that have formed a committee of concerned lawyers, and they are definitely going after the injustices and speaking up and speaking out in the country for things that go contrary to the law and the Constitution, and that is so commendable. I'd love to see that replicated in all the countries across the region, because we have some people in positions of authority and leadership who are quite lawless, who support lawlessness, and who influence arms of the state to be lawless when it suits them to be that way. Yes, thank you very much for sharing this information with us.
Come back on sometime later and report good news.
Absolutely. Yes. So that's another woman in the fight, Dwyer.
Leading the fight. Yeah. Leading the fight.
Leading the fight.
Yeah, the women are the champions. The men, oh Lord, for us.
Are on a different path, it seems, save and except for those who are part of the fight.
Well, I'm following you all.
Yeah. It's really very disheartening, It is so disheartening to see what partisan politics has reduced our countries to. It's really, really, really disheartening to see that we, as descendants of slaves, our foreparents who fought for freedom, who fought so that we wouldn't have to be on the plantations, who fought to get us out of colonization so that we wouldn't have to work for people who oppress us and treat us like we are not really people. Our ancestors who fought to get us out of those situations have to be turning in their graves to think that we, who are supposed to be free, have put ourselves back in those situations and are treating each other like slaves. Those in positions of leadership and authority are treating those that they're supposed to be protecting and serving, treating them like they don't matter.
Okay, there are a couple more. We have a couple more comments here.
Yeah.
So Annie Williams asks, what's the relationship between the thugs and the man's wife? And Lucy responding to that comment earlier about the lawyer who killed his girlfriend, Lucy said, it's being said that upstanding members of polite St. Vincent society were totally aligned to the alleged perpetrators. And then Anna Sam says, too much unsolved murders in SVG. Some of those killings aren't just gang members involved.
That is an important question that Annie has asked. What is the relationship between the thugs and the man's wife? Is there any connection between that relationship and the shooting? Why would they come and attack him? The motive, we really hope to hear what the motive is or was as this thing unfolds. Because on the surface, it really doesn't make sense. It absolutely makes no sense, except these people were high on something and totally not in control of their minds for them to behave in that manner. Someone asked a question earlier, what's the mood of the people on the ground about this latest incident?
The persons who, like for instance, remember we had that incident recently when the hiker went up on the volcano. Everybody was talking about that. You know, there was the pro-lava man and the anti-lava man and the I don't care and the hero, and everybody was talking about that. Everybody was talking. But with this now, they're just the persons who are not supporters of the government who are speaking about it. The supporters of the government are very, very, very quiet. They're saying absolutely nothing. And they were, as Kay explained, malicious enough in the beginning to try to point the finger at someone else, knowing fully well that that wasn't the case. So nobody's really saying anything.
You know, when your neighbor's house is on fire,
wet yours.
you better wet yours. It's sooner or later, it's going to happen to a supporter of the government.
But he is, Dwyer, from all accounts, he is a supporter of the government.
Okay, so he's not Animal Farm. All men are created equal.
Some are more equal than others.
Okay, so he is. I think it was maybe Margaret who earlier said that, use the word disposable, or could have been Beverly.
Somebody commented that he is disposable. It's funny because while we are on quotations and stuff, what immediately came to mind is a favorite one that probably all of you here heard and know. You know, they came for the Jews.
Correct.
And I said nothing because I wasn't a Jew.
Yes.
They came for the trade unionists. And I said nothing because I wasn't a trade unionist.
Yeah.
You know, and then they came for me. And there was no one left.
There's nobody.
No one left. Oh boy. I just wonder, because we who gather here on a Thursday evening are quite awake and quite cognizant to what is happening in our countries. We speak about it passionately. We want to see change. We do everything that we can in our little corner to be catalysts for this change. And you look at the wider citizenry, and you wonder if they are so jaded, if they are so caught up in the wrong that is happening, that it doesn't bother them. That you don't
It's fair. In St. Vincent, it's a lot of fear. You know, it's fear of victimization, and that comes in all sorts of ways. It could come in the form of your life. It could come in the form of losing your job, your livelihood, all sorts of things.
Is it more than that though, Adriana? I'm thinking again of Marcus Garvey and quotes. Marcus Garvey said, here in St. Kitts in 1937, when he gave an address here, and he told the people of St. Kitts and Nevis not to be a nation of jellyfish. He said, your destiny is governed by your mind. If you do not use your mind, somebody who is using his will subjugate you. And he said, poor people throughout the world are heavily occupied, I'm paraphrasing him, with putting something in their stomachs rather than putting something in their minds. And so this is why I ask you, if it is more than just fear, if it is just so many people in such desperate and survival mode that they cannot see beyond the next half a plate of food that is going to bring them some belly comfort, and not really too concerned about the other things in terms of governance, transparency, the rule of law, victimization, and all of these things. Might that be a factor too?
Well, he said not too concerned, and I'm beginning to process that. Let me see. I guess so also too, because he mentioned governance and so forth.
Right.
And I don't think many Vincentians know what governance entails. Because, okay, take for instance what I do. I would critique a lot of things that the government is doing, and I would say, okay, this is what they need to do, why they're doing this, that sort of thing. And it all boils down in the Vincentian mind to hating Ralph.
Right.
Not to a matter of questioning his policy, because let me tell you something here, a very real example. Today we had flooding. Just last night on a live that I was doing, I was asking the question about the airport, the old airport, the E.T. Joshua Airport, and the fact that for years it floods. As long as 2 drops of rain falls from heaven, that airport is flooded out. And I raised the question, why would we put businesses there? One, why are we storing food, relief food for the volcano on the tarmac? And why is the Prime Minister pushing to build plywood schools on the tarmac? And I asked the question, has whatever flooding issues, were they resolved? And of course, that is interpreted as hating the Prime Minister, hating the Prime Minister. Today, first thing happened, rain started, boom, the airport flooded out. And you see all the pictures on Facebook and wherever else. People refusing to think. And some are just not concerned to find out what governance is. So as long as you mention anything related to governance, they automatically see it as an attack on their revered leader.
That's subjugation for you. That's subjugation and degradation. That's it right there. Because they're not using, as Gabby said, use your mind, or else somebody who is using his will subjugate you. That's it right there. And that phenomenon exists not just in St. Vincent, not just in the Caribbean, but it is a global thing. That's why we have so much problem in the world. It's a global thing.
And that is why you will have ordinary people turn on each other and attack each other.
That's the idea.
Adriana describes as their revered leader, because they are conditioned to worship this person.
And they just can't break free.
They don't even realize it. No, they don't even realize it, because even the shooting incident that we were just talking about, you hear the comments out there. There are people trying to justify it.
Yeah.
Because of who is involved, people trying from the very fact that the police called in the man to take a caution statement. It tells you exactly where their head is. They're telling you that he did something wrong. And then
I wish he had a gun. I wish he had a gun.
But then he would have been the one to be arrested and charged to hire.
You come on my property. 2 of you come on my property.
3.
Okay, 3 with guns. I ain't invite you on my property. You come on my property threatening with guns, and I defend myself. Yeah, I'm good. Listen,
as it is better for 12. Lived.
Well, listen. If you have to die, die for something.
Yes.
But it is better. It is better for 12 people to try him in a court than for 6 people to bear him to a grave. You come on my property with a gun, I ain't invite you, and you're giving me gun talk and threatening me. Well, you have guns in your hand when I shoot you. Now, I'm not advocating violence, but I mean, I've seen babies born, and it is the most beautiful thing in nature, but it is a violent act. Sometimes you need violence to get life.
Well, we have the riot gear, so
yeah.
I think they're preparing.
Good night, Cyrus. Yes.
Yes, I think that one person make a comment on Facebook, Margaret read it about the Caribbean Spring. I think that we need a democratic reform in the Caribbean, because when I listening, sometimes before sharing this show with you, I thought Haiti was the only place where some of those things happen. And as I always think that I have the obligation. I mean, we Haitian have the obligation to fix those things. And I always consider the Caribbean, the other Caribbean places, as a democratic place with the justice thing, good governance. And then finally, I realized that we need to fix. We really need a democratic a reform of the government, reform of the justice, and also we have a polarization of the democratic debate in the world now, and it seems that we have that in the Caribbean too. And you can see that the polarization in the United States between Trump and people who are against Trump. You have the same thing in many countries in Europe. And I think that it seems that this is an outbreak, and then that affect the Caribbean area. And then we need to think about it, because I mean, those months I was surprised to learn what happened in Guyana, about those radical, those party based on race or ethnicity, things like that. And then now I couldn't imagine what I heard in St Vincent. That's why when you ask question, I couldn't ask any question, because I was surprised. And I think that we really need to fix it as a people. And then I want you to know that Haiti is worse. This kind of situation, they are worse in Haiti. And then all the Haitians understand that, and then we think that we need to fix it. But I think that like do I keep repeating during all the intervention of the woman, it's not only a country, it's all the region. And then we need a spring, a Caribbean spring, a democratic reform. And also we need to be careful, because what Adriana just said, the logical thing, you're talking about, things on the tarmac. This is logic, there's nothing as a partisan thing. This is logic, like someone who is thinking, a good thinking about a problem,
Right.
who wants to prevent, and then someone hate you or someone critique you for that. This is insane.
Right.
This is insane. What happened?
Insane is right.
Something doesn't work. Come on, man.
Oh, yes. And, this thing, I can tell that it weighs on all of us heavily. But I want to speak with Adriana as well about the flooding this morning. I've seen some images that are, again, it really it really tugs at your humanity when you see these things happening. There is the pandemic. Then St. Vincent had dengue. St. Vincent has a volcano that's erupting, explosive eruption. and then the nation wakes up to a flood. What I've seen some images. What can you describe like the impact on the country? Have you heard anything about the extent of the damage? And how has this affected the shelters? Because we know the shelters are not exactly the best places for heavy rain.
Okay. It's strange, Bev, but this is the first day since the eruption that we have not been bombarded with images of the Prime Minister. I have not seen him up and about, as he has been for the past couple of days. Quite strange. But to begin with the shelters, most of our shelters are schools, and they are inadequate as shelters, infrastructurally inadequate, because many of them don't have windows and so that you could close. So as a volcano shelter, that was inadequate. Hurricane shelter, far more inadequate. But I have not seen any stories from the shelters, but I could imagine that there might have been instances where people had to pack up based on the part of the room in which they're stationed. That sort of thing should have happened. Kingston was flooded. Like I said, it's Joshua Tarmac, that area easily floods because these are low-lying areas. Parts of Kingston was reclaimed from the sea, so flooding there is always expected. But this morning it sort of just creeped up on us because it started off as, just this light shower, and people on Facebook saying, oh, thank goodness for the rain. It's going to wash off some of the ash. But then it didn't stop. It didn't stop. And it kept going and it kept going. And then you started seeing footage from near the volcano, areas of the red zone. You started seeing footage of the Rabica Bridge. The rails are gone. And now people are questioning the structural integrity of that bridge. You are seeing images of lahars. But one of the most striking things, though, is the fact that we in the green zone have been complaining for a very long time that we are being treated as though we're some sort of, I don't want to say royalty, but as though we are not affected by anything related to the volcano. We've been covered in ash. We are taking in evacuees, and so we've had increase in food bills, light bills, all sort of things. But the starkest reminder came today because in an area in Kingstown, they had incredible landslides, and I think about 3 or so houses were completely destroyed.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So now I think it is resonating more to people that St. Vincent and Grenadines, one artist puts it as one zone. We are one zone. St. Vincent is one zone.
One red zone.
One red zone. So I think a lot that humbled some people because, we have a situation now where many persons are becoming very aggressive, very uncaring towards the evacuees, using words such as ungrateful and, that sort of thing. And I think that's a situation that we are brewing for ourselves, but that's a whole other discussion.
The houses that were destroyed, this is creating then a situation where you have more people who will be looking for temporary housing.
Yes. Yeah.
So the population in some shelters are going to be increasing. Except they have family and friends who are able to accommodate them.
Yeah. And if we have, more rains, we could have more slippage, and that could happen again. And let us not forget that in some areas of the orange zone, persons were not able to go back to clean their house roofs of the ash. So
Right.
I guess in the next couple of days, when they do go down there to take photos, we would see even more, devastation.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about that.
It's a lot. It really is a lot.
It's overwhelming. I mean, I'm just sitting
is.
here and it's just
It is.
overwhelming.
And it has started raining again.
So you may have situations where people left their houses because of the volcano, and then to have the house damaged or even destroyed by the flood, because right now those people in shelters, they're really not able to go back to check on their property to see if it's been affected or how it's been affected.
Here's something else too that crossed my mind. The reality is that some people are not going to have anything to go back to, particularly those in the red zone. So what exactly is going to happen to those people, and what measures are being put in place? Because housing is going to be needed for them. I mean, they can't remain in a shelter permanently. And they may not be able to live in the red zone anymore. Because for one, we don't know how long this eruption is going to go on. It could go on for a couple months. It could go on for a couple of years. And so for as long as it's erupting, they can't go back. So what happens to them?
And even immediately after, they won't be able to go back there either.
Right. It's not just
roads have been destroyed, homes have been destroyed,
whole communities, whole villages.
Yeah, have been destroyed. But you asked what are the plans, so let me explain to you what the plans are, Margaret. So Sedema has said that we should look at temporary housing and get the people out of the shelters. No, they've been in the shelters too long. And I agree with this, because what we're finding, what's happening now, local people are catering, despite the fact that the Prime Minister said some time ago that the government is providing meals, 3 meals for the persons in the shelters. That's a total lie. People on the ground, ordinary citizens, are providing these meals. And I think it's about time that we come out of the shelters and let them manage their own affairs. Give them the food, give them whatever stock they need, let them cook and do these basic things for themselves. Now, in terms of plans, although Sedema has said to build temporary housing, and they've said that they could actually bring in wooden houses with complete frames, our government has decided, our Prime Minister has decided to forget that and to relocate the people. So his thing is he will send them back out there and he would rebuild the roads and rebuild the homes, and that would be that.
You mean
Rebuild the
send the
homes
people,
where?
send the people
I don't
back
know.
into the red zone?
Yes. Yeah, he's going to send them back out. He's going to rebuild out there. I don't know when he's doing this. I don't know. I'm only repeating what he says. Yes, that's what I did. I was just there stunned.
Yeah.
No, but one of the arguments that I've heard,
building what is destroyed is an awesome idea. I think that in terms of vision, the reconstruction vision has to be that. But in the immediacy, right, in the short to medium term, that obviously is not the solution. It's almost sounds like an impossibility. So I appreciate that he did not give time frame, because that may be his ambition. But what is the solution to respond to the current situation with the shelters and people needing to begin to have some sort of normalcy restored to their lives?
Mm-hmm.
And I think perhaps you do not understand how our Prime Minister thinks. Because you and I would listen to that and think, well, okay, this is not going to happen anytime soon. You have to do environmental studies, rebuilding roads is going to take a very long time. Houses, of course, it's going to take at least 2 years also to get them back out there. But when he says these things, he makes them sound as though, well, to his followers, they sound as though they're going to happen in the next 4 months. And that's why he would say to them, okay, seeing that there are people in the shelters, we're going to build plywood schools on the tarmac. And it just sounds so fantastic. You wonder why would somebody actually listen to this and believe it and think that this is something possible?
Okay.
So the people are going to continue living in the school buildings.
And then the schools are going to move to the tarmac.
Will move to the plywood buildings on the tarmac.
Yes.
And that makes sense to somebody.
Yes. And I was told today that I haven't seen this. I was told that something was sent out from the Ministry of Education to say that our students will write their CSEC in August.
August. So who is preparing them for that? How are they being prepared for that?
I have no idea, Bev. Bev, this is a comedy country.
But there has been, it's a comedy country, but this is a serious thing.
It's serious thing, but we do not have a leader who seems to have the capability of having serious thoughts.
But education in St. Vincent has been royally disrupted for more than a year now.
Yes. And the deadline for deferrals is coming up. It's the 1st of May.
Right. So students, maybe even some of the students who should have done their CSEC exams since last year have not been able to do it. And we're probably looking forward to do it this year, as far as I've heard, some reports I've heard. And those who were supposed to be doing it this year, no preparation has really begun with them for those kinds of exams.
The students aren't ready. They are not ready.
But they could not
and teachers have been saying this, but the Ministry of Education, they're having discussions amongst themselves.
And they decide that the exam should go ahead in August.
Seems that way, because the 1st of May is almost here and we haven't had no national discussion on this.
So teachers and students have May, June, and July to prepare for the exam. And with the
That's what I'm hearing.
With the schools still being used as shelters.
But that's what I just said to you, Bev. Knowing how CSEC operates, that makes no sense, because you can't give our students an exam later than the other students.
No, you can't.
You can't. So I don't know where this idea of having them do an exam in August, unless you're going to give them a completely different exam. And CSEC exams have already been compromised. The integrity has already been compromised. So it's just total chaos.
Chaos in this regard is truly an understatement. Truly an understatement.
Adriana, let me ask you something. Has the emergency and the humanitarian needs of the crisis brought about by the volcano spurred perhaps a different approach to leadership and governance, in terms of, has the Prime Minister or his government made a national call? Is there some sort of, unifying, strategy to bring the country together to move through these difficulties? Because what is happening is difficult, and it would be difficult for any political regime that were there. And I have found that within some of our countries, even just managing the COVID pandemic, which required a national response and a particular type of appeal to come from a leadership level, right? And that did not happen. Everything became very polarized from the very beginning. But I think in the case of St. Vincent, with such a catastrophic, awakening brought about by that volcano, has it not inspired a different approach? to governance? Is the opposition on any management and I don't know team? Is there a national management team?
Okay, so let me try to answer or to respond to what you've raised. We do have a national emergency management organization, and from the onset, one of our opposition senators offered himself, to be part of that committee. That was turned down. He did so because he was one of the key figures working in the 1979 eruption relief and all of that. Just today, you're hearing talks about Bev's favorite member of parliament. It's alleged that there's some special list going around where he's getting material and other things of comfort for his supporters. You're hearing too, well, this was discussed nationally, where a truck sent out by NEMO to deliver water in villages refused to give water to a lady who is a supporter of the NDP, which is the opposition. You've had instances too of persons from the local water authority going around to distribute water wearing the government, the ULP's party t-shirt. So to answer your question, in short, no, there hasn't been any concerted effort to bring the opposition and the government together. In fact, a container that was brought in by the opposition ended up being, delayed at the port, and their excuse was they had tinned meat in there. So now everybody who is bringing in tuna and sardines and whatever else has to have their things tested, apparently. And the Prime Minister recently made a statement. He said...
Before you got to the statement, when you said I have to have the canned goods tested
That's
how?
what we're told.
Tested how?
I don't know, Bev. I don't do the testing.
And for what? Tested for what?
To see where it's coming from, to see if it's not tainted. Yeah, things like that. Yeah, it all sounds very lofty. Yeah?
Tested, you said?
That's what they said. It has to be, I guess, basically in quarantine for a bit and whatever else.
You quarantine the sardines too?
Quarantine the food?
Man, stop that, man.
Why y'all? No, the things have to be tested.
How?
Okay?
How they can test it?
I don't do the testing, Dwyer.
So if you open a tin, the tester who working in the Ministry of Health, open a tin of sardine,
and eat it,
and drop dead, then that sardine ain't good.
That ain't good.
Okay, that sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a very good. Mind you, they're complaining about all the barrels and so that are coming in, and there's increase on the port. So if you're thinking that the port is overcrowded, why are you continuing to hold up people's stuff?
Yeah, so why don't they distribute the things?
Did you to change a bit from Malaka's question, did you see the photos or the videos with the tanks, the water tanks floating away?
Yes. Those tanks would have been shipped to St. Vincent from maybe the second or third day of the eruptions.
Yeah. And we had tanks coming to meet tanks at the port. So it's no surprise that they were there floating around today.
Well, I'll tell you, your situation is extremely difficult. Really, really very difficult.
To believe.
No.
What is happening? Just what is happening.
But I'll tell you, if this does not reveal the utter inability of the leadership of the country to navigate you through this crisis, then nothing will. The test of leadership comes at times like this, and the leadership is failing. That water that floated away should already been allocated.
The
tanks were empty.
Allocated.
The tanks were empty. The tanks were donated to be given to people and to go to shelters so that people could store water.
And now we're hearing that they're selling the tanks.
But how can they be selling them when they were donated to give away as relief material? Who is selling them? Who?
It's alleged that the government department is doing this.
This is failure.
No.
You see why people don't want to send things to governments?
But that's what is happening, Dwyer.
Remember.
And that's why now they're trying to cut down on that and forcing people to send their things through NEMO and to the government. So they're telling you, oh, if you send them to those organizations, to the government, then you get the concessions.
So if somebody sends a container of water, half to the government and half to Adriana King, what happens to that half with Adriana King name on it?
Adriana King would get it.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Because if Adriana King goes to the wharf to collect half a container of water and Adriana King encounters any issues, it would not be nice.
Or suppose it's not Adriana King. Suppose it's just
somebody else.
Well, somebody else, they might want to say to them, oh, we're going to keep all. And if so, the person might say, oh, okay, all right.
But it's not donated, all of it, to the government.
Yeah.
But why we have a situation where NEMO continues to hoard items, and there are people in shelters who don't have water, who don't have toiletries, basic things, and NEMO is telling them, we don't have this. Or if you're in a private home, they're telling you they're dealing with the shelters, or they're not answering the phones at all.
No.
You have seen
you're gonna need external help to run this thing. You can't do it.
I know one person, recently messaged me for some help, and I asked the question. Everybody who asked me for help, I asked them one question: have you gone to NEMO? Because I'm the sort of person, if I want something, I am going to go and get it. So if there's something at NEMO that I need, I will go and I will get it from NEMO. However I have to get that done, I will get it done. But most people here seem to just give up at, the minute they hear no. So they call NEMO, okay, I would like some water. Do you have any water? No. Okay, then bye. How could you tell me you don't have water when I'm looking at how many ships coming in here daily with relief items? I'm coming for my water. Ensure that when I get there, I get my water.
Or the second question is, if you do not have the water, where am I supposed to get it? Direct me where I'm to get it. Because someone has to be in control of the water.
Exactly. Because I saw the water.
Are the things that are being brought in properly inventoried and accounted for, and the movement of them in and the distribution? Is there a system in place for that? Because the little anecdote I gave about the sardine, because the person who tastes it is not going to drop down and die. But at the end of the tin of sardine, he or she will have had a meal. And that's the problem, because a lot of this stuff, and this is why people are suspicious of sending things to governments, because functionaries would end up with things hoarded roof high in their homes, while other people out there can't get basic things.
And
you need an international presence in your country to monitor this crisis.
And these organizations that are donating items, they need to ensure that when the items get here to St. Vincent, they are distributed. They are given to people who actually need them. There is actually a story right now, Dwyer, that I'm trying to make sense of, where items were shipped to St. Vincent since last year, September. And doing a little digging, I found out that NEMO gave some of the items to organizations here. But what we're seeing in terms of what was, given, the figures don't look right.
Oh, Lord.
They simply don't look right. And if what we're seeing is what was given, then NEMO should have more of that left, which begs the question, why is it when the volcano erupted, NEMO had nothing? So it's all very confusing. So I would advise anybody who's sending items to St. Vincent to ensure that they're sending it to somebody they could trust and that they follow up and see exactly how their items have been allocated. Don't just send them to NEMO and figure that there are saints at NEMO who are going to go into the shelters and give them out, because mattresses have been coming in. We see mattresses over and over. And every time there's a shipload of mattresses, somebody is on Facebook asking for a mattress to take to a shelter. That's the sort of nonsense that is happening here.
Oh no, I was just going to say it's funny that what's happening in St. Vincent is kind of like the same stories you heard coming out of Grenada in the aftermath of Ivan. I was in New York and was part of that New York group that had raised a whole set of funds and stuff for Ivan. And there was a whole thing with the government coming and seizing the funds, and nobody knew where it disappeared after. That left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouth. I mean, there is no government in the Caribbean in the aftermath of a disaster, no government organization that could come to me and ask me for a donation. It's not happening. It's just not happening. And I think it's not just me. You're hearing it from a lot of people. I have a lot of NC friends here in the New York area who are saying, look, we're not sending anything. I have my family. I'm sending it to my family. There is nothing going to the government or anything. Yeah. Once you add the government, a government association, it's not happening. And that's because people have been burned before, and they're just going based on those past experiences. So up to yesterday, my mom was talking to a friend of hers, and the woman said she was busy packing some barrels for her family in St. Vincent, and she was not bothering with King Ralph. She was sending it straight to her family.
Yeah, people rather just pay the freight and deal with their families.
Yeah. But the other question,
it's not going to happen.
The other question I was asking was whether or not in all of this, NEMO really has the capacity to do the inventory and do the distribution of the supplies. If it all goes there, can they handle it?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well,
I don't think they even... Go ahead, sorry.
No, you go ahead, Adriana.
No, I was just about to say that I don't even think that they understood that just to manage their day-to-day activities, they would need an increase in staff.
I don't think the problem is the failure to execute the logistics. I think the problem rests with trustworthiness. And the ordinary folks in St. Vincent and the Grenadines need to understand, and this is to expand on what Margaret just said. If people out there in the diaspora do not trust the government, then effectively less relief will come into the country. And the neediest of people are the ones who will suffer most as a result of that distrust of the government. The very same people who continue to celebrate their own degradation and deprivation. And I think this is a point that needs to be made in the public square in St. Vincent at the time. And don't think again that you all are unique. It happens everywhere where there's a disaster.
Yes.
Governments and functionaries thief things.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah,
and when you have a government like
Haiti is a major example. Haiti,
that isn't being audited,
exactly.
people are even more skeptical.
Yeah, so it's not hard to audit it because it's all electronic. It's just that's the distrust and the physical logistics.
No, I'm talking about government in terms of the spending, not just this.
No, I agree.
Regular spending.
I agree.
Okay, go ahead, and then we could take some comments from thing. Go ahead, Cyrus.
I think that we also can trust the religious or mission or evangelical institution. And because some people could want to help and then they don't have family in St. Vincent, but sending to the church or to mission or to relief organization. For example, my kids are in the Seventh-day Adventist school, and that school, I see they are collecting things for St. Vincent, and the teacher of one of them even give me a letter. You see a paper from it's a Seventh-day Adventist Church ADRA disaster relief supplies, and then they are collecting stuff. I think that you have many other denominations like, I don't know, Catholic Relief Service, things like that. They can help their community about the collection. You know, me, I don't trust the government either. But I think that sometimes you have small group who have a good reputation. I don't know what Joanna think, but I think that big government is not good in this kind of thing. But you have more small group like family, community leader, or we, you know, those religious or churches thing, they can help.
That has been happening.
Yeah, good. Okay, so let's take some comments from our listeners before they string us up here. So Michael Samuel Potilda says, Adriana King and others, tell Ralph to put a shift system at the port and customs, 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 2 to 11. This will eliminate the congestion at the ports. It's that simple. He also said the people need to hit the streets and stand up because it's not going to get better in SPG. The regime is spiraling out of control.
Yeah.
Gail Ann Guy says, seriously, I have the University of the Virgin Islands sending me a container. Are you saying that I will not get it because it's in my name? And then Venice Pantleys, I guess, forgive me if I pronounce this wrong, says, this needs to be public. Let the world know and demand the government do right by the people. And Annie Williams says, all food and goods donated to the crisis should be distributed to everyone in need. It's for the people. This is outrageous. It's simply embarrassing. Leslie Warner says, I have 5 people staying at my home. They registered with NEMO, and up to this hour, NEMO never assisted them. Venny Stanley said again, cot was given since last November last year and was never given to the shelters. So I don't know if that was probably thing.
The shelter started with nothing.
Right. Michael Samuel said again, this can only happen in the Caribbean. In the US, you have to be accountable for even the dog we walk, because if we don't, it's Rikers Island we're going.
I ain't so sure about that.
I know, right?
I ain't so sure. Remember
He's
New
at
Orleans?
something that Ralph said. Ralph calls the people in the diaspora dog walkers and babysitters.
Listen, dog walking is big business here, you know. So he better don't be making fun of that stuff.
Yeah. Said they have jobs of no consequence.
Oh, really?
Because they're living hand to mouth.
Hand to mouth, yes.
Walking dogs.
But I know quite a few people who have successful dog walking business. And you looking at any, you know, so don't
any honest work is honorable. You don't stoop down to things like that.
Exactly.
Any honest work is honorable.
Malaka, you got an idea for a PM now?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's just a microcosm of the poor governance structure across the entire Caribbean. It's a system that needs to be thrown out. And I am saying it, people, it's a system that needs to be thrown out. Because, Adriana, if we get rid of these current couple of rulers and put another set in the same system,
will we hold them accountable?
Same thing is going to happen. So the entire system needs to be overturned, and we need to establish systems that can work for our small states and give us the type of governance that can take us forward and you know, have an inclusivity, because the populations are small. It's not hard to include everyone. You will always have the rich, you'll always have the poor, but you can have a society that takes care of people in a much better way without the division and the victimization. And that's the kind of system that we just need to overturn and have something in place that can work for the people, all the people. That is my passion for a new system.
You're going to need a new mentality.
Mhm.
Whatever the system is requires a mentality to drive it.
Yes.
The mentality is the problem. Gabby was right. You do not use your mind and develop and train your mind, you'll be subjugated by somebody who has developed and trained his or her mind. God, they're not going to do it for you. They're going to do it to you.
Exactly.
And we are getting screwed royally, and we are willing conspirators in our own oppression. So the mentality needs to be changed.
Yeah.
It's a mentality thing.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's not going to be easy, and I do recognize that it's not going to be easy, but it has to be done.
Yeah, it has to be done. Our survival depends on it.
Yes, we cannot continue this way. Absolutely cannot.
And some pain will have to be experienced along the way, you know,
Of
because
course.
people not gonna concede their privilege. I mean, how many people could walk around an island in a crisis to the food shelters and whatever and just take up food as they like? And already they're not slim. Already they're not slim. But anywhere they see a piece of food, they want it.
And how many
Constraint to power. No constraint to power. That is what that
people defend
symbolizes.
this. Why they defend this? They say he's human, he was hungry, he was tired.
Let me tell you something. He's not the only person who is or has been in public life. Maleka has been a minister and a senator in Antigua. I think I could say this for Maleka. In a situation like that, Maleka will walk with something in her bag and eat it rather than take up somebody's food.
Yeah.
Maleka, if I'm wrong, say I'm wrong.
You're right.
You can't do that. I would not be no longer your friend. Walk with your food. I've been in situations like that. I walk with my little bag, make a little bread and something, put a little ginger beer or more beer thing in the bag. And I eat what I walk with. Not only that, I walk with food too to give people.
Thank you. I said that. He rolls
Walk
out
with
with
food.
3 vehicles and not even a case of water to take to whichever shelter that he's visiting. But he goes and he eats their eats out their food.
You can imagine, disgraceful.
And his wife has what, 2 or 3 restaurants?
But it is just disgraceful, and it shows the lack of leadership.
Cannibals,
Oh,
and bloodsuckers, cannibals and leeches.
Yeah, but
right.
So you understand why I say to Vincentians don't understand what good governance is.
Yeah.
Well, who does?
Well,
In
in
the
fact,
last-
they excuse these things.
In the last term of the government in St. Kitts, when we were discussing good governance, a fella called into a radio program that I was on and said, good governance is different things to different people. Maybe to you who have a big job or a good position, good governance means integrity in public life and transparency and so. But to the struggling man, like Gabby said, good governance means a plate of food and maybe a key to a door that you call your own. But that is not good governance. That is the benchmark you set for the small man. So his expectations will not be great. So he will remain small and dependent and degraded. Don't tell me they don't have any 2 definitions for good governance. Only one.
Absolutely.
And Adriana, what about the volcano now?
The last report I saw said something about, little earthquakes here and there, but it's still uneasy. So it's still erupting. Yeah.
Because the morning of the flood rains, I believe there was some concern. People couldn't figure out if it was thunder or it was the volcano rumbling.
Yeah, I think it was thunder.
Yeah, but of course everyone is nervous and on edge, so you can
Because I was hearing it
understand.
from my home and that was very loud, so I would think it was thunder.
Yeah.
And
Right.
Diana, another question is about the administration of the border. For example, if a private or if a NGOs or church, bring things on board, is the administration work very well, very easy, just to make the things come true in
I
the
think so. I
country?
think once you contact Port Kingstown and you make the arrangements there, it's not an issue.
Okay.
I've been told by some persons in New York that they were being turned down when they tried to send barrels down because the government keeps saying send money and not send items.
Oh Lord.
But yes, but I think that might clear up sometime.
I say a whole lot.
Oh Lord. Sacre bleu.
But people have to send what they have. I see a note here from Michael Margaret. He says, Belgium's PM just cannot manage the crises. Just take ours in Grenada was posting about the fastest growing economy and a booming economy. But 2 months after COVID, he started crying out for money. Well, the Prime Minister of Grenada certainly knows how to send mixed signals. He sat down in a chit chat with journalists and he said, they can't pay the public workers still because there's no money. But in the same breath, he's saying, looking at the figures for the first quarter, they're looking better than they did last year, or words to that effect. And I don't know how to reconcile the two. I don't know what to accept because you don't know. You just don't know. You get all of these different stories back to back behind each other. And you're like, come on, make up your mind. It's either either. It can't be both.
Yeah.
You can't, it just can't be both. So
Well, he'll get money when he privatizes the airport, so don't worry about it. That's gonna work out. That's gonna work out.
Oh yes, absolutely so. Well, it has been quite a solemn evening, we would say, on Necro Chat. We try to keep it light and keep it right, but there were some very heavy issues coming out of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and not just heavy for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but heavy because we recognize that it happens in all our countries, in all our states. And at the root of it is a political system that just does not work, and we need to overturn it, get rid of it, and get something in place that can work for our small states and for our people. Whether the people know it or not, they deserve better. We all deserve better. And we need to get up, stand up for our rights and the rights of our children and our future and the future of our children. We can't go on like this, people. We just cannot. So let's work together for us, for ourselves, and stop worshiping these things and these people that really don't care about us. All right. So thank you all suspects for being here. We thank our guest, attorney at law, Kay Bacchus Batiste, who was with us earlier, who is involved in that very, very harrowing shooting incident in St. Vincent. And we look forward to being with all of you again next week. Every week we say, boy, we hope for some better news next week, We really hope for things to be turning around. Last week when we spoke about the volcano in St. Vincent, we were hoping for a better week this week. Next thing we hear about flood, next thing we hear about shooting. Boy, don't bring any more of those excitement next week. Is it St. Vincent?
This is the whole movie and some.
I tell you, this is a whole series. This is not just a movie. We're getting season 1 and season 2 one time. I tell you, keep doing what you can to help humanity. Keep doing what you can for the people in St. Vincent who are so much in need right now. Let's keep pushing the authorities to do the right thing, to distribute the stuff that they have. There are people there who are in need. There are people helping people who are in need. So distribute the things.
People in need helping people in need.
Exactly.
Yes.
You
Love,
know,
man,
so
love,
so
love.
just let the donations flow, let the things flow. Don't be so mean, don't be so wicked, don't be so hard to the people. Let's just help each other. St. Vincent is in a crisis right now. We're all in crisis, but St. Vincent is in a bigger one because of the volcano and now because of the flood and other things that are happening in the society. So suspects, I know that everyone here has been doing a little bit to see what they can do to help, and we'll continue doing what we do. Thank you, viewers, for staying with us for this very special Make We Chat edition of Time to Face the Facts. And we invite you to join us again next time this program airs.